We just wanted to welcome Jeff this morning as he comes and gives us our talk this morning.
Thank you.
It's always great, isn't it?
Thank you, Kirli. Very good. Someone's keys. There. Well, good morning. It's so good to be with you. I was thinking about this talk today and I realised that Carolyn and I, and Carolyn probably a little bit longer than myself, but we've been followers of Jesus, passionate followers of Jesus, for 49 years now. 49 years. Next year will be 50 years since we committed our lives to following him and seeking God's will above anything else in our lives. And over that 49 years, we have seen and been a part of major shifts in church world, in church life. If someone from 49 years ago could hop in a time machine and find themselves in a contemporary church today, they would wonder where on earth they actually were. Church today looks nothing like it did 49 years ago when we first became followers of Jesus. Back in 1975, it was unheard of to have a full musical band in church. It just wasn't done. There were no drums, there were no electric guitars, there were no keyboards, there were none of those things. Traditional churches in those days, they would have a choir and perhaps an organ, a pipe organ probably. And while modern churches in those days usually had a couple of acoustic guitars and a piano. And that was it. Usually there was no amplification. Everything was just live and acoustic and coming off the stage. Then during the 80s and the 90s, this amazing shift began to take place, pioneered by places like Hillsong and Christian City Church in Australia, and places like Willow Creek Association in Chicago in the USA. And suddenly, electric guitars appeared on church stages. Now that was shocking to some people because the only other place that they had seen electric guitars was in clubs and nightclubs and perhaps on TV with someone like Elvis Presley playing his electric guitar and gyrating his hips and wiggling his legs, and people were horrified at the thought that electric guitars were making their way into the church space. Drums, similar thing happened with drums when they brought drums in. And people going, I can't stand the noise. If I wanted to have drums, I'd go to a nightclub, or I'd go to a pub, I'd go to somewhere. Church is not a place where we need to have drums and synthesizers. And for many of us, these were exciting days as churches installed sound systems to amplify their music. Serious sound systems, and recruited music directors and professional musos, contemporary musos to lead congregations. Church became louder and it became edgier. Church began to attract younger people who were attracted by this style of music that was being presented. And there was a real feeling during those years that the way to drive church growth, the way to connect with the unchurched, the way to reach out to people who didn't know Jesus, the way to connect to people who were perhaps atheists, was to have a pumping, alive, contemporary band, complete with, in the 90s, particularly smoke machines and coloured lights. And you've all seen churches like that where it's all happening. And we thought back in the 80s and 90s, if we can just get a bigger sound system, if we can just get some more guitarists or some more drummers, if we can get a big smoke machine and lights, and in those days particularly, they would cut off all the light that was coming in from outside, and the churches, auditoriums were dark so that the lights could work and the smoke machine could have an effect. And it was just like, I don't know what. So contemporary churches began building specialist architect-designed buildings with large stages and tiered seating and massive sound systems. And the church made this transition from cathedrals and traditional churches into auditoriums. And while a lot of good came out of it, it wasn't the key that people thought it would be. We didn't see people in our community in large numbers coming to Jesus. It was fun and it was enjoyable and it was good and it was positive, but it didn't achieve everything hoped for. During our last 49 years, Carolyn and I have also seen the rise of what I'll call the celebrity preachers. During the 80s and 90s, gifted Bible teachers began to not only grow significant large churches themselves, but they also began to travel and to speak at conferences right around the world. As technology improved, so did their influence. Through technology, they could reach tens of thousands of people. And big-name preachers could attract crowds of 15,000, 10,000, even 50,000 people would gather together to hear one of these big-name preachers. And yes, many people became followers of Jesus or were strengthened in their faith, but we didn't see the influence of these people grow beyond the conferences or grow beyond the rallies that they ran. And then in the late 80s to early 90s, we began to see some of these people with moral failures on their hands. And we thought the rise of the celebrity preacher, this would allow us to connect with our communities. And people would come flooding into our churches. But we realised that celebrity preachers weren't the answer either. Another shift we've seen in our 49 years was a major shift was the introduction of technology into church world. Many people here today would not know what an overhead projector is. I think, Michael, we've got a little picture there of an overhead projector, someone using it. And this is a device that was used back in the days when I first became a follower of Jesus. We would sing songs, and the song would be placed on a transparent slide, and the slide would be put there, and then the words would come up on the screen, and someone's job would be, when the next song came up, would be to go through the alphabetical index of all of the strong songs, and then put that song up on the screen. Is there anyone here that was your job in church world? Okay, we've got a few of you. Yeah, that's what there was. And back in those days, the song leader never had a song list. They never had a set list. All you musos would love to get your set list early in the week so you can practice your songs. Most songs only had 3 chords. An occasional, we called them choruses in those days, would have 4 chords. If the song was written by a guitarist, it was probably in the key of E. If it was written by a keyboard player, it was probably in the key of C, and everyone knew the songs because they were super, super simple, and they called us in those days happy clappies because we would just clap along to these songs that were so simple, and the song leader would just, whatever song popped into his mind next, that's what he would do, and the rest of the band would follow along. And so there was no list to have those transparencies ready in set order. It was just, that's the next song. Quick, there are the words up on the screen. Some of you younger ones are looking at me going, what is he talking about? Technology came along, and now we had computers and in some cases LED screens, and we have whole technology that helps us to do church. Back then, Sunday's talk was recorded onto an amazing thing called a cassette tape. One of my granddaughters was over the other day and hearing us talk about cassette tapes, and she said, Dad, what's a cassette tape? And I had one just hanging. So I showed her this unusual device, and we tried to explain to her what it was that it actually did. And our house doesn't even have a cassette player in it anymore, even though I still have a collection of cassettes from the 80s and the 90s. And then came the CD, the compact disc. And Sunday's talk would be placed on the top of a compact disc. And I think we still have upstairs in our office area a tower there. And you can duplicate, you can record Sunday's talk and then burn it from the computer onto a compact disc. And then you would take the compact disc up there and put other blank discs. And then you could burn those discs onto that one. Then there's no more compact discs. Cars don't come with CD players in them anymore because it's all live streaming and podcasts and digital everything. But even though preaching and teaching is more accessible than it ever has before, and you can listen to the world's best preaching, it's just a click away, it still hasn't produced the change in our world that we were hoping for. I remember people talking about this rise of technology. This technology is amazing. People all around the world are going to hear the message of Jesus Christ. And they had hope in this technology, but we find that even though we have incredible technology, we've seen churches searching for keys that will help connect them to their community. The last 49 years, I've seen every now and then that someone comes up with a new idea that we think will be the answer to reaching people. There's been food banks, Let's get this food bank running, and food banks is good. There's nothing wrong with them, but they think, food bank, that's going to be the answer. And we had some great response during the flood with people bringing food and food banks and helping, but we didn't see a commensurate rise in people coming to Jesus or reaching out to the church. We've seen welfare programs. We've seen business techniques. Some of you remember, I can remember in the 90s, every church leader was reading a book by Tom Peters and Nancy Austin called A Passion for Excellence. I think there's a little slide there. We can pop that up, Michael. Passion for Excellence. And this was a book written about business principles. It looked at successful businesses and analysed why they were successful. And church leaders had got hold of this book and the principles in it. And they were applying those business principles to their church world, which wasn't bad because some churches were run pretty lamely. They needed a bit of structure. They needed a bit of direction. They needed a bit of vision in there. And then, so this book helped provide it. And I remember reading that book and being very impacted by it. And then there were books by other business leaders like Jim Collins, who wrote like Good to Great. I think we've got a picture of that, yes, and Built to Last. Again, business principles that church leaders took and applied, thinking that if only we can get these principles applied into church world, that will be the answer for people coming into the church. There was a saying back then that you'll either run your church like a business or you'll end up running it like a bad business. And there was some truth in that, and it did help churches to become more professional in how they operated. But we didn't end up reaching our communities. Or my last little illustration here, we saw franchised programs being implemented in churches. And there was one particular program that's been running for many, many years. And one of the pastors in our local town here, he ran this program here involving preschool children and their parents and music. It was a great program. It was brilliant, actually. And parents loved it, particularly unchurched parents would turn up weekly to be involved in this franchised musical program that was really brilliant. And a lot of people came along with no church experience. Hundreds of them over many years, but the pastor eventually stopped that recently after 15 years of weekly events. Why? Because not one person had joined their church after 15 years of hard work. They thought this franchised program was going to be the answer for reaching our community. Many churches are looking for the next big thing or the magic bullet of growth and community connection. But instead of looking to business leaders, instead of looking to technology, instead of looking to smoke machines and lights and pumping music, what does the Bible say about connecting with non-churched people? What does Jesus say about how we are to connect with those who live around us? What programs and ideas does the Bible actually know? Isn't it a good thing to come back to what the Bible has to say about something? In John chapter 13 and verse 34, Jesus says this from the Century English Bible. He says this, I give you a new commandment. I give you a new commandment. What's the commandment? Love one another. It's a new commandment. Love one another. And he says this, just as I have loved you, wow. And how much does Jesus love us? He loves us a lot, as we were singing about this morning. Just as Jesus loved you, so you also must. So you also must love each other. There's a commandment in the first part of that. There's a must here in the second part. And then he goes on and makes this amazing statement, which I'm sure many of us have read many, many times, and we go, oh yeah, that's interesting, but we don't stop and think about it. He says this love, loving one another, this is how, who? Everyone. This is how your community, this is how your school, this is how your local community, the people that gather together of a Saturday morning or wherever it is they're gathering, this is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, that you are followers of Jesus, that you are Christians, that you have the life of God within you when you love each other. Wow. What an amazing statement this morning. This is how people will know. Wow, it's not just technology and it's not just these other things. There's a tangible thing that we as a church are responsible for, which will open the eyes of people around about us to see their need for the reality of Jesus in their world. The Message translation puts it this way. Everyone will recognize that you are my, Jesus' disciples, when they see the love you have for each other. Oh, we're starting to feel warm and fuzzy this morning. I don't think so, but anyway. Here Jesus gives us the key to reaching others. Here he reveals his plan for people connecting with his church, with our church. And it's not just a suggestion. He didn't say, today I give you a new suggestion. A new suggestion. If you feel like it, if it's not inconvenient for you, if there's nothing else comes up, if you've got an opportunity in your world. No, it's not a new suggestion I give to you. He didn't say, I've got a new idea for you. I've got a new thing for you to try. No, he said, it didn't say that. He said it's not a new fad or a new program or a new teaching. He said it's not a new book that's just been released that's going to release your church into reaching its community. No, he didn't say that. He said it's a new commandment. Everyone say commandment. It's a commandment. It's not optional. If you go and purchase a car from the car dealer, he'll try and give you some optional extras with the car. It might be some side steps, or it might be an upgraded radio, or it might be leather seats. You've got the base model, and then everything else is an upgrade. But Jesus is saying here that love is not an optional extra to church life. Love is the car. Love is the vehicle. Love is the thing you're purchasing. There's other optional extras like, perhaps the lights and the smoke machine or whatever it is. But love is not an optional extra. Love is what he wants us to have. This is a commandment that states the defining characteristic of our church community should be love. The defining characteristic. The defining characteristic of our church. And isn't church world so often not that? Sometimes church world has bickering and unhappy people and grizzling and grumbling and little things that are going on there. But no, here, the defining characteristic should be love. The thing which should set us apart from every other institution on planet Earth should be that people should be able to look at us and see a people who love one another. It shouldn't be our technology or our fancy screens or our moving lights. Shouldn't be our celebrity teachers or our programs or our YouTube channel. It shouldn't be our slick production of Sunday mornings, as Isaac was mentioning, just going through it nice and smoothly and getting the Sunday morning over with. All those things can be good and are good. But Jesus said the defining thing, the distinguishing thing, the attractional thing, the thing which should stand out a mile off about our church should be our love for one another. This is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, Jesus said, when you love each other. So here's my question this morning. What does that love look like? What shape should it have? What does it look like to someone on the outside looking in and seeing this love? Well, Peter, one of the disciples of Jesus, writing to Christians in 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 22, says this about how we should love everyone. He says this, love one another earnestly from a pure heart. Love one another earnestly. We are to be a church where we love one another earnestly from pure hearts. The word earnestly there is really interesting. In the Greek, it's the word ektenos. Ektenos, it's translated in different versions as love one another fervently or deeply or intensely or sincerely. They're big words, aren't they? They're serious words. They're not light words. Love one another fervently. We are to, Peter's saying, love one another fervently. Love one another deeply. Love one another intensely. Love one another sincerely. I looked at this word ektenos, and in its literal meaning in the Greek language, it literally means it can be translated as love one another with maximum effort. Maximum effort is the most accurate translation of that particular word that we have that has been translated as fervently and so on. Literally, love one another with maximum effort. I think most of us here drive cars, and those who don't are looking forward to the time when they can drive a car. Most of us drive our cars, our vehicles, with minimum effort. We don't take a lot. We take minimum effort. We don't stress the motor too much. We want that motor to last for quite some time, so we don't stress it too much. We use as little fuel as possible. We're not heavy-footed, so we accelerate slowly so that our fuel economy lasts out, minimum effort. We ease onto the brakes. We don't slam the brakes on all at once. We ease onto the brakes nice and early. We look after our tyres. We don't spin the tyres, or we don't go around corners because tyres are expensive and you have to replace them. Most of us drive with minimum effort, but some of you I know, some of you from time to time, when no one's looking, sometimes you drive with maximum effort. Sometimes you brake at the last minute. Some of you I know, then you step on the gas after you've braked at the last minute, and you got round the corner, you drop it down a gear and you hit the accelerator, and then you begin to wind that motor out. You know it can go 7,000 RPMs to the red line. You know it can do that, and you're going to see just how it's going to go when you do that. So gets to the red line, boom, back into the next, off you go again. Step on the gas till the motor, then the next gear until it red lines again. And if there's anyone else in the car, and I'm not talking about if there's anyone else in your car, I'm not talking about my car, they're telling you to slow down. Stop driving like an idiot. It's not the time to drive to the max. That's what happens to me anyway. Peter's saying, love one another with maximum effort. Love one another and let the wheels spin occasionally. Let the wheels bite in. Love one another and sometimes take it to the red line. Take it to where the red line is. Love one another and don't worry about the fuel economy that's going to come out of it. Love one another with maximum effort. The Greek word for maximum effort is used in one other place in the New Testament. One other place. It says in Acts chapter 12 and verse 5 that Peter had been arrested by Herod for preaching about Jesus and had been put in jail. And Herod had just had John, the brother of James, the brother of John, arrested and beheaded as well. And Peter was next in line to lose his life to Herod. And it says this in Acts chapter 12 and verse 5, but while Peter was in prison, the church was praying very earnestly for him. The church was praying very ektonos for him. The church was praying with maximum effort for Peter. And we know the story. In the middle of the night, an angel came down and slapped Peter on the side and get up, and his chains fell off and he was delivered from what was going to be certain death. In other words, the church was praying for him with maximum effort that he would be delivered from a situation. They weren't holding back. Sometimes we pray. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, I don't enjoy praying much. And I said, well, once you get a crisis in your life, then you'll find yourself praying like you never have before. When a crisis comes along, when a major difficulty comes along, when you find there's no one else that can help you out of your situation, the only one is God, then you'll find yourself praying with maximum effort more than you ever have before. They gave it their all, these people who were praying. I'm an old Trekkie fan. I love Star Trek. Anyone else love Star Trek? There was always, 3 of you. Fantastic. This illustration is going to work then, isn't it? Back in the Star Trek days, there was always a famous scene. The Starship Enterprise would get in trouble with an enemy or some sort of difficulty, and there would be a scene where Captain Kirk would be on the bridge, and he'd be talking to his engineer down. What was the engineer's name? Scotty. And Scotty was what nationality? Scottish. Scotty was Scottish. And the Captain Kirk would say, Scotty, I need more power. I need more energy. And Scotty would go, Captain, I'm giving her all she's got. I haven't got any more. She's going, we're on maximum effort. And so I've got a little quick little clip there. So let's have a little look at this.
Kirk Engineering, get us out of here, Scotty.
You bet your ass, Captain. Captain McCoy, the gravity well has got us.
Go to maximum more. Push it.
I'm giving her all she's got, Captain.
I'm giving her all she's got, Captain. And sometimes, yes, that's good. Sometimes we need to give it all she's got. We need to give it all we've got. We need to give it maximum effort. We need to pray with maximum effort. We need to love one another with maximum effort. We need to stop holding back and giving ourselves minimum effort. Permission to give minimum effort to things that we do in our world and give it maximum effort. What would loving one another look like if we gave it maximum effort? The second thing Peter says here is to love one another earnestly from a pure heart. In other words, our love is not to impress anyone else. Isn't it easy sometimes to love someone thinking, if someone's going to notice me doing this? And our love has this little taint about it that it's actually to draw attention to me. Loving one another from a pure heart means it's not a means to an end. It's not manipulative. We're not loving someone because we really have a selfish or self-seeking agenda underneath. It's not a performance or a show. It doesn't give for the sake of thinking, we'll get something back from this. Romans chapter 12 and verses 9 and 10 says this, Paul writing to the Romans, he says, let love be genuine. Let love be genuine. Let it be real. Let it be in such a way that no one's putting anything on. No one's doing this for their own agenda or their own reasons. Love from a genuine heart. And then he says, love one another with brotherly affection. Love one another with brotherly affection. Like you would love your brother or your sister. One commentator in the previous century says about this verse, he says, expressing the love of Christians for one another is a special form of love. In it there should ever be the warmth of family affection. That somehow when we greet each other of a Sunday, that somehow when we gather together as a church family Sunday by Sunday or in our connect groups or in our Bible studies, there should be in the middle of that thing that meeting together, there should be the warmth of family connection, that somehow we are a spiritual family. One of the metaphors for the church is a family. And here's the issue. Most families aren't perfect. Ours certainly wasn't, and I don't think yours might be either. Most families have to work out issues and have to work out how to navigate life together. They have to navigate personalities and brokenness and people making mistakes in the middle of their family life. And it's the same for us as a church family, working out how to love one another. There'll be times when we go, stupid person, what do they do that for? Oh, they offended me. Or something happened there, and there's an opportunity to take issue with how someone's response is. But being a church family means that we work out how to respond. We work out how to forgive. We work out how to treat one another as part of a family. I know some families have major splits sometimes, and some churches do. But every time a family has a little difference of opinion, it would be difficult if one of the kids said to Dad, Kim, I'm sick of this family. I'm going down to join the Halverson family. They'll be nice to me down there. Yeah, they'll look after me. They won't treat me like this. And it doesn't work that way. Kim says, hey, come back here, son. You come back here. We're going to sort this out. And you sort it out because you're a family. You work it out. Here's the deal. Jesus said that our loving one another would point people to himself. That as we love each other to the max, and as we love each other with the pure heart, that love would cause people to see him. I want to finish this morning, and could someone help out? If you can, if you're not, that's okay. Elisa's back on keys. How cool was that this morning? Fantastic. Yeah, and she's also an amazing vocalist and leader and all sorts of other talented things as well. So she'll be joining us in all sorts of ways in the time ahead. I want to finish this morning with well-known words of Paul writing to the Corinthians. We all know this, 1 Corinthians 13. We've all heard it time and time again. But here's my brief little paraphrase of a couple of verses from the middle there. And Paul points out what love looks like practically. Here we go. When you love someone, you will be patient with them. Isn't that hard sometimes? Mate. Because people do stupid things and they say silly things and they put their foot in it, and then when they pull their foot out, they put their other foot in it as well. And sometimes well-meaning people who mean well say the dumbest of things. Then they thought they were saying something nice and they thought they were giving you a compliment, or they thought they were showing empathy to you, or they thought they were having a spiritual response to you, and you didn't like that they said. But love someone and you'll be patient with them. You'll be kind and gentle with them. Isn't it nice when people are kind and gentle to us? I don't enjoy much when someone comes up and gives me a piece of their mind. Normally they don't have enough to actually spare any, but they give me a piece of their mind anyway. And they might leave feeling okay, but I'm left feeling, okay, I'm a failure. I've disappointed someone. I've disappointed them in their circumstance or their situation. But if someone comes up and they're kind with you, they can still raise the issue, but they can do it in a kind way. They can do it in a gentle way. They can do it in a way where they give me opportunity to explain what it is that I might have done or said. Then it goes on, I've said here, you won't be arrogant or rude to them. Won't be arrogant or rude. There's too many rude Christians in the world. And there's too many arrogant Christians telling other people what they should or shouldn't be doing with their life. And there's too many rude Christians who feel like because I'm loved by God, then that gives me the right to tell others what they should be doing. It says you won't demand that you get your own way all the time. You won't snap at them, even when you feel irritated by them. You won't keep a list of others' mistakes, bringing it out from time to time to show you are right. Have you ever been tempted to keep a list of your spouse's mistakes? Because you see, like, that this happened 2 months ago. I wished I'd written down the date that happened and the details so I could bring it out and show that nothing's changed in this family, this marriage or whatever. Not in my marriage. I've just seen that in other marriages, I've been told. Keeping a list. Sometimes we offend and we keep a list of the offences and it sticks there in our mind, and then we begin to replay it over and over. And then we think, I should have said this and I should have done that. And you're driving in your car and you're having roast pasta for lunch or roast whatever it is for dinner. You won't keep a list of others' mistakes, bringing it out from time to time to show you are right. Love places a high value on truth and honesty and keeps you going even when you feel like giving up because it's really hard. Love just keeps going. Love means you keep hoping that things will change, that there can be a brighter tomorrow. I love where the church has come from in 49 years. I don't want to go back to singing 3-chord choruses and overhead projectors. I don't want to go back to cassette tapes. I don't want to go back to some of the technology and the things that we've had, but those things, as good as they are, they're not what identifies us as Jesus followers. Jesus made it clear that our love for one another must be our defining characteristic. So my encouragement to us today is let's begin to love one another from a pure heart. Let's love each other to the max. And let's be a church where people can see something of the life of Jesus reflecting us as people. Would you stand with me this morning? I'd love to pray with you. If you're here today and you would like special prayer in your world, you're facing something, a challenge, a difficulty, we would love to pray with you. There's a number of people who would love to stand and pray with you as well. Father, we thank you for love. Lord, I pray for us that as we're talking about this core values of love over this next little season of time, Lord, that you would come and bring us a revelation of what it means to love one another. Lord, for those of us, Lord, who aren't patient, who aren't kind, Lord, who are opinionated, Lord, who find it difficult to overlook the faults of others, Lord, I pray that your grace would touch our heart and our world, that we might find ourselves to be people who love easily, who love passionately, who love, Lord, to the max. Lord, I pray for each and every one of us gathered here today, Lord, that we would find practical ways to love one another. Lord, maybe it's a firm handshake and a look in the eye as we meet each other Sunday. Maybe it's a hug around the shoulders. Lord, maybe it's help with getting a baby in and out of the car. Lord, maybe it's serving someone on the coffee cart, Lord, or doing something to make someone else's life better. Lord, I pray that you would give us practical opportunities. And Lord, as we do, I pray that people would see your life flowing in and through us as a church. Lord, I thank you for every person here. I pray for marriages. Lord, that marriages would grow in love. Lord, that families would grow in love. Lord, that individuals would find a connected group of people that they can love unconditionally with as well. Lord, I pray for children. Lord, that they would find themselves in secure homes and secure families, Lord, because of your love. So, Lord, I thank you. I commit each of us here into your hands now. Lord, help us to be passionate lovers. Lord, help us love to the max. Lord, help us to love from a pure heart. I thank you for every person. I commit them and their week into your hands. Walk with each one of us, I pray, in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Go forth, passionate lovers. Find someone to share your life with to the max. God bless.